You know, one thing that I really like doing, dear noble ones, is to collaborate with other creators. You might not think so because I don't do it very often, but that is not because I lack an interest in appearing on camera with other YouTubers. No. It's just because of my inability to plan and organize things well. Whenever someone tells me, hey, do you want to make a collaboration video? I'm like, yeah. And then it takes me like 9 months. But in the past, as you know, I have collaborated with several content creators. I've made collaboration videos with Shad from Shadiversity, Matt Easton from Schola Gladiatoria, Scalagrim, but I've also collaborated with other creators outside the community of the sword, such as, for example, Luke Ranieri from Polymathy and Scorpio Martiano's channel. Regardless of what sort of channel you have, if you would like to do a little collaboration with me or you want to invite me over, it doesn't even matter if you have a lot of subscribers, like you're a big shot with 10 million subscribers, and of course there is going to be a very nice incentive to come to your podcast. But then again, even if you have like, I have a channel with 200 subs, it's fine. If you invite me, it will still be an honor for me, regardless of how many subscribers you have. For some reasons, you want to listen to this blabbering Italian man, maybe share my opinions or bring in some sources, talk about whatever the heck you want to talk about. It can be ancient Rome, it can be languages, it can be the medieval period, or it can be my 2 dogs. Now, the reason why I'm speaking about this is because a few days ago, I was actually invited by another channel, and it was the channel Nerdrotic. My experience, it was the first time that I had met all of them, because I wasn't aware of the channel Nerdrotic, never watched it, very, very successful. Everyone on that panel, I didn't know a single YouTuber there. I had heard of Critical Drinker, but I had never watched any of their videos. But I have to say that everyone on the panel was extremely respectful, very welcoming, they were very nice with me, and I really enjoyed the experience. Not to mention that the Nerdrotic people chose a fantastic picture of me. I look dashing on that thumbnail, so I really appreciate that. They posted this one, which is like cuts of the parts where I spoke, because at the end of the day, I was invited. I was asked to talk about Gladiator II and bring in the historical elements, talking about the movie and relevancy with actual ancient Rome. So I went and I did that. It was a fantastic thing. And you can actually see those on this video, just featuring mostly the cutouts of when I was speaking and when Shad was speaking. Now, I wanted to speak a little bit about my experience with them, but I also want to speak about one thing that I noticed some people are doing, of course, on Twitter. In other words, they are trying to shame me. Oh, Metatron, how dare you go to a podcast that I disagree with, whether it be politically, whether it be socially, whether it be, I suppose, for culture wars and whatnot. I resent that sort of guilty by association mentality. In fact, when it comes to this, I actually made a post on my Twitter/X, kind of wanted to share it with you, and I said, I had a great time on Nerdrotic's channel the other day when they invited me to talk about Gladiator II. All members of the panel were welcoming and respectful towards me. I'd release a brief video where I talk about my experience. Awesome guys. To those of you among my subscribers who are already fans of the channel, will probably collaborate again if they happen to talk about historical movies or video game. I'm always open to collaborate with anyone if the topic overlaps with my interests. For those of you who don't like them because of their personal preference or politics and whatnot, I respect your freedom, so I ask you to respect mine as well. I'm a moderate, so I'm more than happy to go whenever invited. Right, left, center, up, down, religious, atheist, anti-woke, anti-bigot. You don't have to have identical political ideas, economic doctrine and attitudes towards social issues to mine for me to accept to work with you and discuss. If I agree on something, I'll say it. If I disagree on something, I'll say it. Freedom. I hate tribalism and polarizing tactics. I'm not a disassociated due to politics or religion guy, and never will be. I'm a freedom of speech guy. I'm a dialogue guy. Plus, once again, they were very cool with me. I loved it. For those here on X who tried to shame me for having dared to accept the invitation, nobody gives an F about what you think. You are no fans of mine anyways. Their guilty by association manipulation tactics don't work with me. I'll take anyone on the panel over those gaslighting, manipulative, anti-freedom haters any day of the week. For those of you who didn't watch the episode, I would like to share now my favorite highlights. But of course, these are just a few moments, so if you do want to watch the entire thing, I'll leave links in the description below.
I mean, Ridley, like, just straight up said, you know, the sharks were brought up, you know, that are in the Colosseum.
He's like, because we thought it would be awesome. Yeah.
Well, the Romans did have sharks. The Romans did have sharks.
Some people were saying they didn't know what sharks were, and that's bullshit.
No, that's wrong. They had them. They were farming them in the coast near Rome. But the transportation of sharks would be problematic because that would be
difficult. Yes,
depending on the species. The reality is that the sources mention in the Naumachia, so that sort of flooding of the arena, which happens in imperial time, they mention crocodiles and hippopotamus. rather than sharks.
Which are
Sharks
way
is
more dangerous than sharks. Hippos would be way more dangerous.
Yeah, like Pliny mentioned it, Marshall mentions it. There are a few mentions.
I
The
can't
rhino
imagine
is
how much-
also fine.
I can get the desire to show the sheer spectacle of what they were capable of doing in the Colosseum. It's like, holy shit, they actually filled this thing with water and had naval battles in it. Well, yeah, they did. But it's a lot to try and cram into a film.
Not to mention that even this idea of, oh my gosh, free Numidia, we need to prevent Numidia hadn't been free since 105 BC. So 300 years before is when that battle happens. The last bastion of freedom in North Africa is Mauritania, which is modern day Algeria, Morocco, so west of Numidia. Numidia would be in Africa Proconsularis, so that they weren't free. That thing happened with Gaius Marius 300 years before the setting of this movie. When I saw that at the beginning of the film, I thought, okay, I'm watching Warhammer Fantasy. So once you come, and at the end of the day, you've got Skull Crusher of Khorne on top of Rhinoceros anyways. It's like blood for the blood god, skulls for the throne of Khorne. So at the end of the day, it's fantasy. So the chronology is completely out of place. It's just, there's nothing. Like Claudius is, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the first one, obviously, the Emperor Commodus doesn't actually get killed by Maximus Decimus Meridius in a gladiatorial pit. Like, that doesn't happen, right? Like, the first one is very much Roman history with an element of let's change these things around, change this character around, and create our story within the space, Yeah,
it's called a historical fiction, and it's common enough. But the thing about historical fiction is it needs to be grounded in some measure of history for it to really be sold. And I think the first one did this. This one has some truly crap for its historical period. Freaking had trebuchets like 300 years before that. I was like, what the freaking hell is that doing there?
With the counterweight.
I know. And it's got crap like that, like speckled throughout, where it just makes it, you can't even take it seriously if you're into history at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's total fantasy. That's why I walked into it. But I think it's awesome because I'll watch your video and I'll listen to Shad stuff because then you learn the real history, which is, it ends up being cooler. Much cooler.
Coastal city that you want to besiege, like fine, blockade it with your ships and then land your troops on shore and have them encircle it. Like, surely that's a lot easier.
And once again, the Romans controlled everything else around anyways. Even if this was 300 years before, they controlled everything. So already, sort of, almost, except for Mauritania at that point. So yeah, you can absolutely do that. It's a good point. Did you see the bronze helmets of the soldiers, the Numidian soldiers? That they look like they're literally from a museum because they have the patina, the green patina. And I mean, I love it. I love it. I mean, if any museum wants to gift me one, I will gladly accept it and keep it in that condition. But the sources tell us that they polished bronze constantly.
It's even so crazy when you see those helmets, Metatron, and you see how small they were.
They wouldn't fit. Yeah, they wouldn't fit.
Hey, I know the Greeks did it, but did the Romans paint their statues as well in period?
Yes, very good point. All the statues in there are white. They should have been in color and painted with pigment. Same for the temples. They shouldn't be white. They should be blues and reds, bright colors. Roman polychromy is everywhere in architecture, absolutely. The only difference would be bronze statues because they would use the different chromatic varieties of bronze depending on the constituents to create different colors. Because bronze can be yellow, can be reddish, can be brown, has different, depends on what you put inside. So the bronze statues wouldn't be painted, but all marble statues should be absolutely in color. So that also puzzled me.
At least in that, to kind of immerse an audience, I think there's an element of you have to give them what they expect rather than what's accurate. People have an image in their head of what Rome looked like, and so that's probably what they're going for.
To me, I'm like, screw the audience. We need to
me and Shad are not going to agree with that. Me and Shad, but then again, we are nerds.
But I get what you're saying.
All the hieroglyphics were painted too in Egypt. They were painted. They weren't plain.
Talking about that, did you see that the commemorative building section for Maximus Decimus Meridius has a thing written on it in English? I was amazed.
Oh, did it? Really?
It was next level retardation.
It was American.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And we can't even read English. Like, what's the point?
There is one more room with Lucilla, who, by the way, died in 182, so she should be dead. I just needed to say that. But she enters this room, and once again, the poetry on the walls is in English. And I don't understand that choice because it kills my immersion. Oh, sorry, I was just going to say the Denzel Washington character, Macrinus, he's real. He's a historical character. And the whole thing that, I don't know your name, so I'm going to say Critical Drinker, if you don't mind. What Critical Drinker was saying is that, yes, the whole political intrigue, that's all correct, but he will become emperor for a year. So he doesn't decide to fight a gladiator like that and die in this. What about spoiler alerts? I don't want to...
Spoiler.
It's Friday Night Lights.
Yes, I suppose. Anyways, that didn't happen, and it's nonsense that they have him die like that. And the character Macrinus, I don't have a problem with them casting Denzel Washington because he may have been black, maybe. Maybe Semitic, maybe black, we don't know. And I'm happy.
Like the first person from outside, of a different status of birth to actually come up and become emperor, right?
Exactly. But I want to connect to what you just said now, because at one point they have this sentence that he states, and he says, I was once owned, and now I will own an empire. He was never owned. Macrinus was never a slave. Also, he never had a gladiatorial school, but I understand that one for storytelling purposes. But he was not a slave. So he was a man of humble origins that ended up becoming the Praetorian prefects under Caracalla. And that is an amazing story to me. Imagine a sentence, instead of saying, I'm a black man, so I was once owned, slavery bad. Instead of doing that, which to me is insulting, in fact, why don't you say, no, I'm a man of humble origin, but now I have the command of the Praetorian Guard, and I will one day rule the empire, which he will, for 1 year, and then they behead him. That's a little anticlimactic, I get it, but I mean, maybe remove that part. But I'm saying it's wasted. They added the whole, I was the slave of Marcus Aurelius, but that's not real. That didn't happen. And I don't understand why they felt the need to add it. Black man was a slave. He wasn't.
Even though the movie was so long, I would have appreciated maybe another 10, 15 minutes to give us some more background on how these two twins became emperor. Where did they
were
come
not
from?
I think the movie...
They were not twins. They
weren't?
Me off.
Also, they were gay, right?
No. So unless... What's his name? Ridley Scott. Unless he wants to redefine biology, and twins are still twins even if they're born on a different year, 189, 188, they were not twins.
Irish twins?
was an older brother.
Oh.
So there is that. And also, I don't have a big problem with Geta, because Geta is described as being a little flamboyant in the sources, specifically Historia Augusta. So him liking flashy clothes, that's what we are told. Okay, but Caracalla was supposed to be a manly man. Caracalla, you see the bust? Caracalla was brutal. You know the scene when Caracalla is all afraid because people are all complaining outside, and he's like, oh, they want our heads. He had the same situation with people in Alexandria of Egypt, and he had a huge chunk of the population slaughtered because of it. It was a brutal man. So that is not Caracalla. Geta, I'm good. Caracalla,
they needed
that would have been more
like
interesting.
that, because in the
That printing press? What?
Free capua.
Would you like a cappuccino?
Sì, cappuccino, grazie. Grazie, caffè.
Grazie.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.
Awesome experience. This was really, really fun. And this guy has got cool sunglasses. Now, I would like to underline that regardless of your personal politics or your personal positions when it comes to this freaking culture war that is putting people into tribalistic, societal walled-off sectors, if you will, and oh, how dare you go and discuss or appear on a podcast that is outside my tribe. Very polarizing times. But regardless of that, I would be very happy if someone who is on a completely different spectrum, as these guys are Nerdrotic, once again, they were really awesome with me, but whoever it is that invites me, I would go, regardless of whether I agree, disagree with some of the members on said panel. To be honest with you, if Ben Shapiro invited me, I would go. If the Young Turks invited me, I would go. I mean, given the Young Turks guy, as long as he tells me that he's not going to scream, because when he screams, I am like, okay, looks like he's having a heart attack, so I click away. But if it's a day when he's like speaking normally, like he did in his interview at Lex Fridman recently, there he is, I can't pronounce his name, Cenk Uyghur, I have no idea. I think it's Turkish in origin or something. Anyways, if he wanted to talk with me, I don't know about what, to be honest. Not that I matter that much, but I'm just saying, if it happened and this guy contacted me, he's clearly very left-wing, and if he told me, hey, do you want to talk about, say, the truth and why it's so important to you to maintain historical accuracy and to represent truthfully the ancient past, including ethnicity, even at the cost of representation or inclusivity, as long as you maintain the truth, then yeah, I'd be more than happy to discuss discuss. If Elon Musk invited me, I would absolutely have a chat with Elon Musk. Jordan Peterson, left, right, center, up, down. I wouldn't exclude people because of their political ideologies, which of course is theirs to have. Freedom is what I say. But in general, if we look at the entire panel, I haven't got a clue. The guy, the Nerdrotic guy, he was really, really cool, very welcoming. The two girls were fantastic. I haven't got a clue what their politics or their ideas are. I don't know. I don't care. It's their politics. And I'm sure that the same could be said about every single member of this panel. I'm sure that if we sit down and talk politics, cultural ideas, societal ideas, we would agree on some things, we would disagree on other things. And that's the beauty of discourse. Anyone should be allowed to joke however they want, to use language and to discuss in a way that they think is appropriate. Freedom. I give freedom to people to choose to live their life however they want, and at the same time I give the same freedom to people to speak their mind freely, whether it be politics, whether it be societal issues, and then if I disagree, I'll say it. It's as simple as that. As you know, I am a moderate. I'm very moderate in my politics. I sometimes lean right, occasionally lean left on some economic issues. I'm very centrist when it comes to social issues. I'm a very live and let live, as long as it's consenting adults, do whatever you want with your life type of guy. But most importantly, this kind of connects to the second part of this video, which is about the sort of tactics, psychological manipulation tactics that people that really are extremists will use against you the moment you step outside the line, which you, by the way, should anytime you feel that you disagree with them. Don't let them shame you. What I want to tell you about that is that there are several techniques. So let's use a comment from a hater to show you exactly how these techniques work so that you can be prepared to counter them, recognize them and counter them, and always stand up for the truth. A comment that I received under my video was Nazism right-wing or left-wing, an answer from history. Now, of course, when I was preparing this video, even though I tried to be as fair as possible, reasonable, I don't even give an answer per se, I just encourage the audience to use the information and the sources that I have presented in order to apply critical thinking and come to their own conclusion. But clearly, I understand that people get really emotional about this and then they will decide to attack and leave hateful comments. But the comment I've chosen today, I haven't just chosen it because of how bad and disingenuous and misleading and deceitful it is, but because it shows a certain type of, we could say, argumentation techniques and logical fallacies that they will use against you. So here we have the comment proper, but what I did is this. Considering the fact that the comment is a complete mess, I've decided to divide all of the different types of logical fallacies that he tried to use against me in separate different colors divided by palette. Let's begin by saying that a logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that occurs usually during a debate or an argumentation. I can't believe what I just watched. How far Metatron has fallen. Red, attempt at shaming, which connects to this. Really, really gross. The fact that he did it at the very beginning of the comment is actually very, very common. It's a common tactic. So what he's doing in this case is what is called poisoning the well, which is a tactic that is based on the idea of trying to discredit your opponent before you even start to address their argument and opinions. This is a deceptive tactic that is used to try and make your opponent's argument look weaker and your counter-arguments look stronger just on the basis of that you've already tainted their image at the very beginning, called out. Then he continues, race is small part of this video, racism isn't right-wing, and the yellow part. I studied sociology and history in college, and this video is totally backwards. You claim to be based in political science, but all political science professors would have to disagree with this video. Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. But that's what's called an argument from authority, and a poor execution at that. In Latin, this is called argumentum ad verecundiam, the argument or appeal to authority. Already this is a fallacy that happens when you try and quote someone who appears to agree with your initial given point, even though you do not have the expertise necessarily to fully comprehend their point, and then you may end up misrepresenting them for your sake. Oftentimes this is also used to quote, for example, someone who has authority on a different field. This happens. You wouldn't imagine how much this happens. But say you have someone like Albert Einstein, and of course he's a genius, but if you quote him on, say, his opinion on politics, or his opinion on philosophy, or his opinion on economy, it could be interesting to review, but he's not an expert on that field necessarily. You should quote him on what he is an expert of. And here is the definition. Appeal to authority is a logical fallacy, and argument from authority are the same form of a discussion argument in which a person producing a claim referencing the opinion of an authority has evidence to support an argument. As a fallacy, it's included on the red herring fallacies group. The appeal to authority is one of the most powerful methods of influencing audiences, but it should not be overvalued. What this means is that there is nothing wrong, per se, when it comes to referring to people who are professionals, but then again, this needs to be done in an honest manner. And of course, that is clearly not what he did, because I mean, all political science professors would disagree with my video, and yet there are plenty of his people in my comments who are specifically political science professionals that agreed with it. And who could even say this? All political science disagrees with you. Also, he said he studied sociology and history in college. This is what someone who doesn't have a degree says. And I have nothing against people who don't have a degree. In fact, I want to say that there are plenty of people in my comments that may not have a degree. I'm pretty sure they can teach me a thing or two, and they can be very well versed in whatever they do study in their free time because of their passion. With that being said, when you point this out, trying to use an argument of authority against my positions, then I'm going to say it back. If you say you studied it, do you have a degree? Now check this one out. And this video is totally backwards and trying to defend right-wing extremism. This, ladies and gentlemen, is when we jump to the strawman attempt, and he'll do plenty. A strawman fallacy is the distortion of someone else's argument to make it easier to attack or refute. That's the definition. And to get a more precise one, instead of addressing the actual argument of the opponent, one may present a somewhat similar but not equal argument. By placing it in the opponent's mouth and then attacking that version of the argument, one is essentially refuting an argument that is different from the one under discussion. And the problem with this very disingenuous way to attack an argument, the problem with that is that people don't realize it. So let's say that this is the situation. Of course, I'm not trying to defend right-wing extremism on a video where I say that I hate all forms of extremism, whether it be far left or whether it be far right. It's ridiculous to make this claim. But let's imagine for a second that he said, you're trying to defend right-wing extremism with this statement. And then I end up trying to defend a position that I never had in the first place. This is what happens when you don't recognize a strawman attempt. Now, in this case, it's quite obvious because it's an extreme one. And what that tells me is that he's not even being logical nor intelligent about this, in the sense that this is clearly the effects of someone who is using emotions, not reason, not logics. He got pissed and wanted to say something absurd just because it made him feel good. It shows vitriol, and it also shows that he has no control over his emotions. He just wanted to attack and try to make me feel bad and shame me into submission. Not gonna happen. But there are people that create strawman arguments in a much more intelligent and methodic way. And when they do that, they're a lot harder to recognize. Because instead of changing completely what you're trying to say, they will make a small, minute change that makes your point a lot weaker, and if you don't notice it, you'll end up defending something that isn't your argument in the first place. So you have to call them out every single time. That's not what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Re-establish the original point. Then he says, I find this video really, really gross, and then we move on to the next tactic. Gaslighting. What is gaslighting? Gaslighting is an insidious form of manipulation and psychological control. Victims of gaslighting are deliberately and systematically fed false information that leads them to question what they know to be true, often about themselves or their points. They may end up doubting their memory, their perception, and even their sanity. Over time, a gaslighter's manipulations can grow more complex and potent, making it increasingly difficult for the victim to see the truth. I hate gaslighters. So he says, yes, Karl Marx's view on the Jewish question is right-wing. His views on the working class are left-wing. Okay, before I destroy this, let me show you the other section of gaslighting. The belief on race is right-wing. So you can only be a racist if you're a right-winger. That's what he's saying. I'll destroy it in a second. And should be the entire video. Their belief on gay people, women, personal freedoms, they are considered the farthest extreme you can go onto social conservatism. Also, liberal does not mean someone is left-wing. And I specifically said on the video that I was looking at this from the American perspective, while at the same time explaining the difference when it comes to classical liberalism from a European perspective. I said all of that on the video, so this is both a strawman attempt, and a gaslighting attempt. Trying to be pedantic but failing at doing that. Obviously, when you say liberal in the American modern context, you mean a left-winger. And any attempt to say, well, that technically doesn't mean that does not work with us. We know what we are saying. The point that he's trying to make and failing miserably in doing so is the fact that he's saying any racist ideology has to be right-wing. And because I demonstrated that Karl Marx was quite racist in a few of his remarks, the only way he could try and defend that, since Karl Marx is as left as it gets, was to then say, well then, his views, anything racist that he had must be right-wing, which is insane. And here is the thing. Is it true? Because I tell it how it is. So, is it true that in the alt-right, and in some extreme members of the far right, but the actual far right, there are people that are racist, particularly towards ethnic minorities, black people, sometimes Mexicans, non-whites? Yes, it's true. Does that mean that every single right-winger or conservative is a racist? No, that's ludicrous. Particularly moderate people and right-leaning people? No, it's just the extremists, which I strongly resent. Likewise, however, if what this individual is saying were to be true, it would mean that every single person who pushes anti-white and anti-Semitic positions on the extreme left of the American political spectrum, which absolutely exist, and I've demonstrated it with all of the different horrible anti-white stuff that you get online, they're right-wingers now. Really. No. You know what the reality is? The reality is racists find themselves everywhere. They lurk into anything. They can be far right-wingers, they can be far left-wingers, they do not represent the whole. Look at, for example, anti-Semites. You find them everywhere today. You find them with the neo-Nazis, but you also find them with the extremists that are left-wingers. Therefore, not every left-winger is anti-white, not every right-winger is anti-black. It's only the extremes. And racism is a separate concept, obviously, from politics. And when it comes to an actual racist individual, they're racist before they even choose a political party, before they even know what the heck they're gonna join. They're already racists. And then they will just connect to whatever it is to try and push their poison onto other people. And to anyone who's gonna tell me in the comments, but technically you're not racist when you're anti-white, yeah, it is racism, no matter how you try and twist it a little bit, being all technical with the, well, I changed the definition to add this little component, and then with this new position, then automatically that means doesn't work. No, it's all racism. It's all the same hatred. When you hate people because of their ethnic components and because of their skin color, whether it be white or black, you're a racist. As simple as that. And then he says liberalism is a philosophy. George W. Bush is as much as a liberal as Joe Biden. Deceptful. He knows exactly what he's doing. Look up what liberal actually means, says the guy who hasn't watched my video because I specifically speak about classical liberalism. Classical liberalism is what right-wingers say when they want to say they believe in liberalism, but in reality they are almost always describing neoliberalism. Trying to say fascism is not an extreme right-wing ideology is so effed up and wrong. I bet he was crying at this point. Don't even mention the fact that the primary reason that Nazis are considered right-wing is because of their stance on social issues. And I would have accepted this if he didn't add all of the rest. Like, you can absolutely disagree with me when I say I think they are neither. And on some aspects, they're clearly left-wing. On some aspects, they're clearly right-wing. And then at the end of the day, it's a mix because they should be described as a totalitarian regime. And that should be the end of it. They should have totalitarian regimes should have their own separate sphere. That's what I was trying to push, which to him was he's defending right-wing extremism because this guy is a child. And yes, it is an ad hominem that I'm using against him, because you see, I don't use ad hominem unless people use ad hominem against me. Then I will reciprocate in kind. At that point, it's defending myself. Anyways, this is the video that I wanted to do. Stay strong, stay free, and keep speaking your mind. It doesn't matter if they try to use guilty by association, shameful. You should be ashamed of yourself. Keep your opinions to yourself. It is hate speech. You cannot speak. Strawman this, strawman that, gaslighting, that never happened, argument from authority. They can use every single logical fallacy against you, against me. As long as we can spot them, we will respond in kind. If you appreciate my content so far and wish to help ensure my ability to continue to tell it how it is, regardless of any possible backlash, please support this channel on Patreon. Any support helps me and my team of academics keep the channel strong and gives us the means to fight back against the political rewriting of history. Stand with us, form the wall, defend the truth. But even if you put me into a panel that imagine is entirely right-wingers, or you put me in a channel and they are all left-wingers, and even if you put me in panels with extremes, so a panel with alt-right and a panel with super far left, I would still go. Because I think at that point, having me on that panel can present to the audience an alternative idea, an alternative way of thinking that is more moderate than, say, some extremist on whatever hypothetical channel that I could go to, and that could break the echo chamber effect. Imagine that I'm invited into, once again, this hypothetical channel where they are all freaking alt-right, but actually alt-right, not everyone you disagree with is called alt-right, actual alt-right. What they're probably gonna do, differently from regular right-wingers, is that they're gonna go very down on the racist line. Okay, because alt-right people can get racist. If I'm speaking about the importance of maintaining coherence when it comes to, for instance, ethnicity and how it's represented with historical people, of course, we would agree that, for example, there was no such a thing as a black Cleopatra, but maybe differently from the approach of an alt-right guy, I would say I have absolutely no problem with black people and black actors and black historical characters represented on screen as long as it's historically correct and coherent. So, yeah, show white people if they were white, show black people if they were historically black, and absolutely give space to everyone as long as it's done within the boundaries of historical truth. And I think that that would be a great element to present to perhaps young members in their audience who are continuously exposed to an extreme view that instead perhaps only wants an ethnocentric representation in the media. Once again, the alt-right does that. I personally don't think regular right-wingers do. It's only the extremes. Now, what about if you put me instead in a panel that is very far left? So it's people that are going to push a lot of anti-white ideas. I would counter that. We would still find some element of agreement if they say, oh, but black people should also be allowed on screen. I'd be like, yeah, I absolutely agree. And of course, if I present the ideas, as I have stated that I would with an alt-right panel, I would present similar ideas when I would say, listen, I have absolutely no problems if you're making a video on the Kandake, the African queens, and of course you employ black actors and then you tell us about the history of these people that is real. I want that to happen. I'd love that to happen in a historically correct and accurate manner, but at the same time, I am against the idea of taking a character that we know was white, was a white European, and then you're swapping him because you're trying to push this fake representation that does not help anyone. I think at that point, left-leaning people that are decent would just tell me, no, I disagree. I don't mind with the swapping of the races. You can put whatever black person to swap to a white guy, but we would have to just agree to disagree in a polite manner because they don't care. They're like, no, I don't care. I know the historical character was white. I'm fine giving the job to a black actor. So we disagree. I'd say, no, give the same job to a black actor. Just tell me the real history. So we would disagree, but we would do it in a decent manner. But a far left guy would start calling me racist and bigot for it. And I can take it because once again, their audience would see that I'm being very, I want to say reasonable, that I'm presenting reason and logic, that there is no hatred with me whatsoever. And that could be a stark difference. And once again, if you're a young viewer of theirs, you're very impressionable and you see, hold on a minute, the far left guys or the alt-right guys that I keep watching, they seem so, there's a lot of vitriol, they're angry, they are crazy. But this guy, he's presenting stuff that makes sense, it's logical, and he's calm. You know, maybe it's only going to work on a very small percentage of those people, but to me, it's a great way to combat echo chambers. Now, the reason why I'm presenting all of this is, one, to explain to you why I would be more than happy to go to any podcast, and I absolutely don't care about the people who are trying to do, oh, I don't like those people, so you shouldn't go. Yeah, you can take that and bring it back to your totalitarian regime, whatever it is that you like. Not gonna happen. Free country. I speak and go wherever I please. All right, number ones, but this was the message for today. Stand the ground. Whatever your preference is politically, you're free. Fight for your freedom. Go wherever you want. Talk to whoever you want. And let's bring back discourse, discussion, also within the world of historical analysis, and even political talk. We have lost the ability to talk. And all people do is attack each other, try to shame each other, use manipulation tactics, and get even more entrenched into their polarizing ideologies. And this happens in the world of religion, it happens in the world of atheism, it happens everywhere. Not gonna happen with me. I am free, you are free to express your opinions, to be decent, and to be an asshole. I try not to be an asshole, but if people want to be assholes, I wouldn't make it illegal. And that is the key difference of the way I approach discourse, linguistically, historically, culturally, and socially. As always, stay free, stay open-minded, and thank you very much for watching. And go check out those videos because they're cool. Bye.